Firefighters in Victoria are hoping milder conditions will help provide some respite as they battle out-of-control blazes around the state. A large fire is burning in the Grampians National Park, prompting emergency warnings to be issued for nearby communities in the state's west. Watch and act warnings remain in place for two separate blazes burning in the Grampians Nature Reserve in the state's southeast and in Balungarook, northwest of Melbourne. And for more on those fires, our reporter Alexander Darling is in Western Victoria with the details.
The same warnings that came into effect last night are in place. The emergency warning areas, the ones where people are being told to leave immediately, are for the suburbs of Mafeking, Watganya, Belfield, Halls Gap, Lake Fyans and Pomona. The watch and acts are for the areas, prepare to leave, are for the areas of Jimmy Creek, Miranatwa, Bournes Hill and Victoria Valley. There's also a watch and act for the areas of Barton, Jalakar, Moyston and Melora North, but the advice there is to monitor conditions as they are changing. As you mentioned just before, it is a cooler day today. I had yesterday off, but at about 2 o'clock I can remember stepping here onto the main street of Ballarat and just seeing this enormous wall of smoke. And that was a reflection of how hot the conditions were yesterday and how fast the wind was blowing the smoke from the Grampians east towards Ballarat. Basically, the conditions were just that tough yesterday that firefighters couldn't really fight the fires as much, but we have heard from the Bureau of Meteorology that there's cooler conditions. You can probably see the wind from the trees behind me. They are also, it's probably worth mentioning that there is a relief centre that's opened up at Alexandra Oval in Ararat, which is just on the eastern edge of the Grampians, for anybody that is trying to leave that fire and needs somewhere to stay. But yeah, I guess the bottom line is that there is a cold front forecast for Victoria today, and firefighters are hoping that they can get a bit on top of the fire. We've also heard, I should mention, from Gary Cook from the CFA, who has more to say.
The fire expanded quite significantly in the Grampians yesterday under really strong southerly winds and has grown now to just under 30,000 hectares. So it's a really large fire. It's into the south end of Lake Belfield, which is south of Halls Gap. So the communities to the northern end of the Grampians have had an emergency warning issued there to leave now. So that's the Halls Gap and Pomona communities. So the fire has stabilised since the wind has dropped, but there is a lot of fire in the landscape.
Now, Alexander, there are also other serious fires burning in Victoria. What can you tell us about those?
Yeah, so Joanna, there's a fire in the Gurdies, which is along the Bass Coast in southeast Victoria, and another one in the Macedon Ranges. Both of those briefly reached emergency level yesterday. They started up during that intense fire day. They're both back down to watch and acts now, however. We also heard from Gary Cook from the CFA. He mentioned that the Bass Coast Highway, which is relevant to that Gurdies fire, is currently closed. It's very hard to get firefighters into that fire there. They're relying on aircrafts, and he's also had a few other things to say earlier this morning.
That fire was a really challenging one yesterday. It sort of spotted in a number of locations and caused a number of small fires outside of the major fire. So crews have worked really hard on that overnight and will continue to do that today. The Bass Coast Highway is closed down to one lane due to the impact of the fire. These fires are in difficult terrain. It's really quite hard to get firefighters on the ground in, so supported by aircraft is really the key, and they'll be doing that on that fire again today.
So just to recap, Joanna, the Grampians fire, it's currently at about 28,000 hectares. It pretty much doubled in size yesterday. Firefighters expect to be fighting that for weeks to come, given we've got more high temperatures expected next week, including on Christmas and Boxing Day. When it comes to that Gurdies fire in eastern Victoria, there will be some cool conditions, but the same as the Grampians, Christmas and Boxing Day could see some significant challenging days. So the fire season is well underway in Victoria, and multiple parts of the state are feeling it at the moment.